What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Stand Up to Sitting podcast. I am your host and Chief Energy Officer, Jeremy Abramson. And guys, I'm super pumped for today's show. But before we go in and dive deep, I want to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you because you are the source of my inspiration. The feedback, the messages that you send me, the conversations that we have are so powerful and impactful and meaningful. So I want to first acknowledge you for investing in yourself, investing in your health, investing in your well-being, and investing in your vision. Because we're all striving to reach our full potential. Because you are a gift. You are one of one, and only you are capable of accomplishing the things that you set out to do. We all have different intentions. We all have different end goals. A lot of times we're aligned with one another, but we feel like we're alone. We feel like we're alone on our chase for greatness or success. And this community is all about connection and support. I don't want you to feel like you're ever alone, okay? You have me, you have the other people in this community, so let's use that. And if this is your first time listening to the show, thank you so much. And welcome to this conscious community that I am so proud we are cultivating. Now, it's time to dive in to today's show. All about the stories we tell ourselves. And as Tony Robbins says, we are defined by the stories we tell ourselves. And a lot of times these stories aren't facts. They're not facts. So I want to talk about a common story or a common truth in many of our lives so we can have that relatability. Now, McKinley-Irvin Family Law estimates that the divorce rate in the U.S. is over 50%. And that is coming from 45% of first marriages end in divorce, 60% of second marriages end in divorce, and 73% of third marriages end in divorce. So it's clearly a subject that a lot of people can relate to. And for me personally, my parents have been married over 40 years. So I can't relate to myself growing up in those circumstances, but I've watched so many of my friends and close ones grow up with that context. So that's why I wanted to use it. So when our parents are divorced, and that's the fact, right? Our parents got divorced. And we oftentimes tell ourselves a story about the divorce. So some common stories we might tell ourselves are that I'm the reason for the divorce. I'm the reason for it. I'm not worthy of their love. I'm not worthy of their support. This is just how all relationships are. Families are dysfunctional. Again, these are all things that we tell ourselves through the process. Think about a kid, a teenager, anyone who's going through this. What are they telling themselves about this divorce? And it's really important to recognize that there's always payoffs to the stories we tell ourselves. So some common payoffs from a divorce and telling ourselves that we're not worthy of being loved, that we're dysfunctional, that we don't deserve this connection, the common payoffs are pity. Pity from others, attention from others, people feeling sorry for us. We can use it as an excuse. We can use it as an excuse for being sad, being lonely. Oh, because my parents didn't love me. We use it as guilt. How many of you who have had parents who got divorced kind of have made them feel guilty, made them feel like they owed you something or like they were just not worthy human beings? And then, of course, whenever there's payoffs, there's also costs. So what are the costs of you telling yourself that you're not worthy of love, that you don't deserve this, that this is how all relationships are, love isn't real? The costs are peace of mind, loneliness, connection, your meaning and association of family, jealousy. Because I know so many kids who grow up in this context and they're jealous. They almost have a resentment towards kids who have both of their parents present. And then that feeling that you're unworthy of love, that is a huge cost, because that's going to translate into a lot of other areas of your life. So whether your parents are divorced or not, hopefully that example could hit home and you could kind of gain an understanding of how the stories we tell ourselves are such a big determining factor of the truth that we live by. So I wanted to share a personal story, a story that I've been living on, because for me, this platform is an area to give a space to give you guys a little bit more of a vulnerable version of Jeremy that you might not see on Instagram, that you might not see on other platforms. And I want to empower you to do the same. I want to empower you to have these conversations with yourself, have these conversations with your loved ones. So during the training, part 2 of gratitude training, and I really don't want to give away too much about the training because it is confidential, and I want you guys to enroll in the training. And I don't want to give up any of the experiences that we had because it was such a special 5 days. But for some reason, for one reason or another, I had to shave my beard completely off after the second day. And I was driving home and I was thinking, I was like, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to shave my beard off. It's been like 3 or 4 years since it's been completely cleaned off. And I was thinking to myself, why, Jeremy, do you have this deep connection to your beard? Is it insecurity? Is it because you think you look much better with it on? And it made me think. It made me think to my childhood. And I remember being a kid in elementary school, middle school, when I was just a baby-faced, innocent kid. And I remember I would get in trouble pretty frequently in school for talking in class. I was a pretty good, obedient kid for the most part, but, you know, I'm a social person. And I love to kind of just talk and goof around with my friends. And when my dad would find out, when a teacher would notify him or it would be on a progress report or parent-teacher conferences, and they told my dad that I was talkative in class, my dad would come down on me. He would ground me, but he would make me write sentences, 200, 300 sentences on paper. I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class. By the way, how many of you guys can relate to that? How many of your parents made you write those sentences? That was a common theme growing up. And I realized what that did to me. It shut off my voice. It shut off my voice by basically growing up with this story that my voice didn't matter. When the truth of it was really, okay, I got in a little trouble for talking in class, and my dad was trying to instill respect into me. But the story I told myself was that my voice didn't matter. I needed to conform. I needed to just accept whatever was told to me. And I grew up with this context that my voice didn't matter. Through high school, through college. And it might seem crazy for you guys to imagine, but I was always submissive in conversations. In class, when teachers would ask, hey, does anyone have a question? I would never ask my questions because I didn't think my voice mattered. I didn't stand up for things I believed in because I didn't think my voice mattered. This story that I told myself that I was living by was holding me back. The costs were so tremendous. It stripped me of my power and influence. It stripped me of my ability to make a difference. It stripped me of my ability to connect with people on a deeper level. And it's so crazy because none of this was aware to me before I was told I needed to shave my beard, because I associated a baby face with that younger version of myself, being told that my voice didn't matter. And I was afraid if I shaved my beard, then my voice would no longer be strong, would no longer be relevant. This was the story that I was telling myself. So it was a really interesting introspective moment that I had, and I shaved completely off, and I realized that I changed the narrative. I changed the story I was telling myself. I'm no longer that silent, baby-faced kid. I am a joyful, honest, inspirational leader, with facial hair or without it. So enough about me. Hopefully that gave you, wow, I've never shared that story like that. It's so interesting, but you guys deserve to hear. It's an interesting realization that I came to. Anyways, guys, I want to create a framework for you to identify what stories you've been living on and how we can try and change that narrative and really live in our truth and create stories that serve us rather than destroy us. So we need to lift ourselves up, and that is what the message is today. I want you to lift out of that negative, self-limiting story that you're telling yourself. L is for look yourself in the mirror. Look yourself in the mirror. Make eye contact. For a few minutes, do this. Look yourself in the mirror and really think about what stories you've been telling yourself. Have you been telling yourself that you're unworthy, that you're undeserving, that love isn't in your context? Jealousy. What are these self-limiting beliefs that you've been living off? Is it fear of judgment? And then I want you to identify your truth and identify the story that you made off of that truth. Because if we can differentiate from the actual facts, your parents got divorced, and then all of those bullshit stories that you told yourself about that incident, then we are taking a lot of positive steps in the right direction. Self-awareness is king. F, forgiveness. Forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing the other parties involved of what they did, but forgiveness is going to provide some peace of mind and some clarity. Understanding, hey, my parents are by no means perfect. They did the best they could, and I forgive them for what they did. Doesn't mean you have to forget it, but if we're constantly living in this resentment and this guilt and this past situation that caused us pain, then it's going to steal away from the joy of being present. And T is for think about the possibilities if you choose to change your context. The possibilities are endless for you. We just have to get out of our own way. So remember lift. L, look yourself in the mirror. I, identify truth from story. F, forgiveness. And T, think about the possibilities. And lastly, I want to finish with 3 questions to ask yourself, because we all know our quality of life is determined by the quality of questions that we ask ourselves. So number 1, what story have you been telling yourself? Awareness is so big on this, and that is why the framework we provided earlier is so valuable. So what story have you been telling yourself? 2, how has this story served you? What have the payoffs been of telling yourself this story? And how has it stripped away your freedom? What are the costs? Number 3 is, how are you going to take ownership and authorship of your life? Because you are the sole author of your book, of your life, of your legacy. So what do you want that to look like? And how are you going to take ownership and authorship of that precious life of yours? Okay, guys, I went all in. I'm finally getting my voice back, but I hope this episode provided value for you, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen. It genuinely means the world. Your support and love keeps me going every single day. And lastly, if this episode provided you some value, please share it with a friend, share it with a loved one, because that's what this community is all about. I can't wait to continue this conversation with you. Shoot me a message, Coach Jeremy 305 on Instagram. My email is ja@e3lifestyle.com. Whatever the means of communication, I want to connect with you on a deep level, and I want to really change the context that we live our lives by. All right, guys. So you already know what time it is. It's time to start living your truth and stand up to sitting.